Hey guys, it's your boy Progress, and welcome to a brand new video. In today's video, I'm actually going to be responding to the reception of my last video, as well as going and correcting some of the things that I had said in that, as well as maybe elaborating more on some of the things that I had meant. I also want to explain what ended up happening in a conversation that I later had with Tokyo's Revenge in regards to what I talked about. My hope here is to keep this as short as possible, so I'm only going to be sticking to the most important things, or at least the things that I think are the most important. So yeah, let's get into this. Not long after that video came out, Tokyo's Revenge actually had posted a comment to it responding to some of the claims that I had made. And I say some because his comment actually really only was making big references to things that I said in the first half of the video, which was really unfortunate to me because the way that I actually structure my content is that I have the least damning or the least suspicious evidence that I place at the beginning of it, and the further along you get through the video towards the ending of it is when I put in like the most suspicious or the most damning evidence. So I didn't really feel it necessary at the time, at least, to respond to his comment or any of the things that he had said, because he really had only had half of the things that I wanted to talk about that were referenced there. But now let me get into some of the stuff that I wanted to make corrections on, as well as apologize for some of the stuff that I should have been more clear with. The first misconception that some people actually had was that when I mentioned Tokyo's first listed SoundCloud song, they for some reason believed that I was trying to say that that actually was his first ever song, which this was not the case at all, because just not long after saying that, I later said this. If we go off of what appears as his first couple songs on SoundCloud, which aren't actually his first songs, but based off of the low quality of the mixing, we can assume that they are at least some of the first few that he did release. I only even mentioned those songs because I was trying to talk about how he had improved so quickly in a specific 2-month time span. But Tokyo did later on clarify that the reason why his music did improve so rapidly was not due to Clifford just working with him. His mixing improved because he just worked really hard on mixing his own and his friends' music essentially non-stop during that time, so he was able to improve at a much faster rate. Which, you know what, honestly, that's fair enough. I'll give him that. That wasn't the only part that had problems though, because a lot of people, including Tokyo himself, believed that when I was talking about his song Jet Slide 98 and mentioned that it was produced by the same guy that produced for X, Members Only, and a few other people, they thought that I was trying to say that he actually got the song custom produced and made by that guy, which was not what I was trying to say at all, because that section was more so dedicated to the comparisons between X and Tokyo, and I was trying to use that as a way of saying that it seemed more like Tokyo went out of his way to go and use a beat produced by somebody who actually worked closely with X and the guys that X works with. Because Tokyo even mentioned that you could actually get these beats on YouTube and that that was exactly what he had done, and I did personally know that you could actually get this guy's beats on YouTube. I had just thought that the way that I had worded it was clear enough for people to be able to understand what I was trying to say there, but I guess it really wasn't, so maybe next time I should try and be a little bit more clear with what I'm trying to say and add secondary information. But something interesting to talk about actually is something that Tokyo and I both got wrong in different ways, which of course it's also still from the X and Tokyo comparison section, where I suggested that Tokyo had only done a Yes Indeed freestyle because XXXTentacion had done one, which I used the fact that it was dedicated to X and had comments that he had responded to in reference to him missing X as my evidence. But it seems like that might have all just been a really big coincidence, because Tokyo responded to this claim that I made in the video in his comment when he said, quote, that Yes Indeed freestyle was released 2 years ago, after X died, but before his Yes Indeed snippet came out, almost a year before his snippet came out, end quote. Which to me, I'm just gonna take this as him more so just saying that he did not know that X's snippet or freestyle had existed at that point, because it's actually not true that X did not have a snippet out for his Yes Indeed freestyle before Tokyo had posted his Yes Indeed freestyle. Because as it's listed on the Genius Lyrics page for X's freestyle, the snippet had been teased on X's Instagram page while he was still alive on May 18th, 2018, which was over 4 months before Tokyo released his freestyle. But of course, that stuff is still irrelevant, because let's just assume then that Tokyo had no idea that this snippet was teased or that it was released to the general public at this point. I'm more so willing to bet that it just was actually coincidental coincidental, because like I doubt he would try and lie to his audience like that for like literally no reason. Also, I do want to make it clear that in the conversation I had with Tokyo, he did not try and like hide the fact that he was influenced by X, and that he even said that his earlier music, you can definitely tell it was more heavily influenced by X, but nowadays it's not really as much. But he did also want to make it clear too that his music isn't just influenced by X. It's influenced a lot by the like Florida scene in general, with a lot of the rappers who are out there, not just like X and Ski, but even people like Denzel Curry and tons of other artists that aren't even rappers that he's influenced by. And one of the things he had said during that conversation that we had, which I feel is definitely a fair argument on his side, is that we do have to understand that X is going to be one of the most influential artists like for this next generation of upcoming rappers. So of course we're going to see a lot of elements that are using things from his style or just pieces here and there, but I feel like that's definitely a fair thing to say, because he's not the only person who's come up with influence from X or other people who have even passed away, because even that adds to why they became so influential. Now, in terms of my claims about the possibility of Tokyo being an industry plant, of course people need to still keep in mind that those videos are always speculation. Like, there are some exceptions with like follow-up videos that I make where I go more in depth on an industry plant, where it's like, yeah, like it's basically proven that they are. But when I make an initial video, all of them, even the ones that people have supported 100%, were all based on the same speculation that this video was too. I definitely never want to make it out to be that I am like this supreme reigner of knowledge on everything going on in a different person's like career or this or that. I'm just making a speculation based off of the things that I can see and what I've researched. Because as I even addressed at the beginning of that video, there is a large group of people who don't believe that Tokyo is an industry plant. But personally, I had come to a different conclusion. So it doesn't mean necessarily that I'm right or they're right, just because at the end of the day, whether you say that he's not or you say that he is, you have to speculate no matter what, because we don't truly know. Like, my content isn't even the only type of content that is speculatory in nature and still sort of commentary based. Like, a good comparison, I would say, is when people make like natty or not videos on whether or not a certain bodybuilder or, you know, workout influencer is actually, you know, on steroids or not on steroids, and they just speculate about it based off of different things that they can visually see. The difference here, though, of course, is that it's not a crime to be an industry plant, so a lot of people actually take it with a grain of salt, even more so. So I'm not really scared that I may have to admit at some point that I make a video that is just wrong in a lot of ways. Even in this, I'm fine with admitting that there were things in my research that ended up not being like perfect, because at the end of the day, it's just not a hill that I'm willing to die on. Honestly, it's just not worth it. After my conversation with Tokyo, though, I do believe that I can confidently say that before his Looney Tunes freestyle or after his Looney Tunes freestyle song, he was actually organic up until that point, that he had gained a following that was in the thousands. I'm not exactly sure how many, and he did have a few songs at that point with over 100,000 plays and possibly even more than that. And he was able to do that by building up a group of people that he trusted who wanted to work on the brand that he was going for. Of course, he had quite a large jump ahead of the average person in the underground because he was able to work relatively earlier on with people like Joey Trapp, but this was because the producer that was working with Tokyo named Clifford was actually taught how to produce by Akachi, who is one of the main producers for Joey Trapp. And this is exactly what was said to me from Tokyo himself.
Literally by chance, just Cliff and Akachi were going to the same college together. So Akachi was teaching Cliff how to produce, like, you know what I mean? That's where Cliff learned. So Cliff saw, I think he told me a long time ago, he saw Akachi producing one day in like one of the classes, and he just asked about it, and then he just started teaching him. And so Cliff on his own avenues found me through the internet, and me and Cliff became friends. And so through that, you know, we ended up linking up at his school, which Akachi goes to, and he introduced me to Akachi in person there. And so that's where I met Cliff and Akachi, and that's how we started working. And then over time, that's how I developed a relationship with Joey, because Joey saw that Akachi was working with me and Cliff, and, you know, he had been following me on Instagram, I think from that, and we all became friends. And That's really it.
But yeah, Tokyo does seem to admit quite adamantly that he did actually have industry help, but it was only after he had already had these songs with hundreds of thousands of plays, and he already had built up a small, like a relatively small, but still a decently sized organic audience. And even it said as well that before Good Morning Tokyo came out, he actually did sign a publishing deal with Black Noise Recordings, where they gave him $50,000 to try and further his career from the point he was already at. Which then, after Good Morning Tokyo blew up on SoundCloud, it was only then that he signed with Interscope. Now, of course, though, I do think there is something to still be said about the fact that the interview that he did with Complex, they still have it listed that he didn't sign to Interscope until Christmas Eve of 2019, when in reality, it was more likely before the second upload of Good Morning Tokyo, because yes, two versions exist. One of them was the original mix by Tokyo himself, and the other version is the version that most people know of now that was mixed by somebody else. But even still, that more so just aligns with the alternative definition of industry plant that I mentioned in the last video, where the artist has a major industry backing them, while making it out to be that they were more independent than they really were at a certain point. It's important to keep in mind, though, that although yes, Tokyo did sign that $50,000 publishing deal with Black Noise Recordings, it seems like a lot of people don't believe that Black Noise counts as like big industry, so I thought that I should mention so that people understand that yes, they are industry. One of their co-founders and obviously major backers is one of the people who was an ex-chairman slash CEO of Warner Music Records. So yeah, they are definitely industry. I don't understand why people keep trying to minimize that. Even in the conversation I had with Tokyo, it kind of felt like he was almost minimizing like how important these people really are. But yeah, so I don't feel like it's that unfair to say that although yes, you know, Tokyo still would have done pretty decent had he not done anything with Black Noise, I would say without, you know, their $50,000 and a lot of their help, he probably wouldn't get to the size that he currently is right now, especially not that fast. Especially taking into consideration that before Good Morning Tokyo had even come out, they had actually helped him get an elevator placement, a placement on Atom 22, and they paid for his computer and studio setup.
But they helped me get on elevator and they helped me get on No Jumper, and then I realized I hated both of those things. And so instead, what we did was I took the money and I basically put it all into like my computer and my setup.
Now, one thing that I do want to kind of slide in here, though, is a clip where Tokyo does explain himself what Black Noise did for him and why they gave him the $50,000.
So when they reached out, we had decided as like us three that we wanted to work with someone that would understand my creative process and the way that I like to do things and everything, and let me continue doing what I want to do, how I want to do it, up until it was that time, whatever that time may be. There's people to invest in us to make it, like, to not even to do like really marketing for us or anything, but for them to give us like the money to us, for us to continue investing in ourselves. And that's what they did.
Because I do kind of feel like he contradicts himself here, because he previously had said that they didn't really do that much marketing for him, when he literally later says that they did the elevator placement and the Atom 22 placement for him. That is considered marketing, so I don't understand what he was trying to get through there, but that definitely didn't come off right. And not even just that, like, it's not just that Black Noise is of course made up by the Warner Bros guy that I already talked about, but they are based off of dudes who own a marketing firm. Like, the 740 project is made up of guys, like, that is a marketing firm, and they are the co-founders along with that other guy from Warner Bros who made this whole thing, like this whole label happen. So I would definitely say it's a far stretch for him to claim that they didn't really do much for him in terms of marketing. But honestly, I guess it's up to you to decide how you want to take what he said there, because to me, it just seems a little bit sketchy, but who knows. Hey guys, editing progress here, and I did quickly want to mention that while I had the discussion with Tokyo's Revenge, I did bring up one of my most damning pieces of evidence from my original video, where I talked about the P-line and C-line owners, which, as you can see on screen here, I've got like a little rundown of what that stuff means. I did mention it in the original, so if you want to get a better understanding, go and watch that too. But basically you can see here that the P-Line and C-Line owners are listed as Black Noise Recordings on both Good Morning Tokyo as well as Thought, and I believe all of Midnight Side B is actually listed as them as well. And what this means is that according to them, Tokyo does not own any of the stuff. Like, he doesn't own the composition, the lyrics, the final product. Nothing that makes up the song or that creates the end product of the song is owned by him. The reason why that is so important is because I kind of told him that this seems to be, like, at least to me, it felt like that was just a straight up admission that he did not have as much creative control or ownership of this thing as he's making it out to be. Because obviously, normally in situations like the actual stuff about the composition rights and the melody and all that, like, as it shows, it would be that the C-Line would be listed as Tokyo himself, whether that would be his real name or, you know, just his stage name or whatever. We would normally see his name on one of these because he had a hand and should theoretically own the actual rights to that stuff if he is as, you know, like, independent during that point, during the Good Morning Tokyo point as he claimed to be. And when I brought this up to him, this was his response to that. Like, it's listed on, like, the SoundCloud thing that, like, the C-Line and P-Line owners is all entirely Black Noise. They're basically the equivalent of what they have written down there is that you have no rights to anything. So, like, how did that go down of, like...
It might just be a miscommunication.
So yeah, that has a lot left to be desired, because I did ask him twice and reminded him twice in our conversation about what this entails, and he had nothing. And then I mentioned to him that he should probably talk to his team about this, because if it really was a mistake, they should fix it. That was like 3 weeks ago, and it still is the exact same way. You can go on there right now, and you will see that the C-Line and P-Line owners are still listed as Black Noise Recordings, even after he was notified about that. So it's a little hard for me to be able to say that that was a mistake when he never fixed it. So yeah, I don't know what to say there, but once again, it's a little fishy. But yeah, like I said, now that I've had this conversation with Tokyo and I've had time to look over everything that we talked about and just everything he said in his comments and messages to me, I do think that Tokyo is not, like, if he is to be considered an industry plant, I would put him closer on the spectrum towards people like Arizona Gervais. Not on the end of, like, Baby Goth or Jumex or any of those people. I think he has a lot more creative control and control over himself than the average artist does, so I don't really feel like it's fair to try and categorize him as, like, an intense industry plant, but I do feel like there is an argument to be made that he kinda wasn't 100% upfront, or maybe his label wasn't 100% upfront with just how much they actually did do for him, you know, before he had even blown up. So yeah, just, I guess, however you feel about that, just feel however you want to. I'm not gonna let what my own opinions are dictate how you guys feel, and it never should be that way. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I think that's probably gonna be the end of it, because I feel like those were the most important things that were talked about, like, in our conversation. There was a lot that we talked about, because obviously, like I said, that conversation was an hour and like 40 minutes long. And of course, I want to give a massive thank you to all of my patrons this month. You guys are so amazing, and the fact that you continue to donate is just crazy. It's just fantastic to see that you guys like my content enough to not only watch it, but then want to donate to me to continue making it. So thank you for that. And of course, guys, massive, super awesome thank you to the $10 and up patrons this month, those being Farski, Midwestfunky, Helen, Seman Punk, Medusa Lives, and Brandon Figler. You guys are fantastic, and it means the absolute world to me, like I said, that you do this, and especially donate such a large value. It's just incredible. Thank you guys so much. But yeah, thank you all for watching. As I had said, let me know what you want to see in the next video. I got some decent ideas that I think you guys will enjoy, but yeah, as always, it should be art over algorithm. Goodbye.
I just can't think anymore. Bring me back, but I won't. Set my ass on the floor. I just can't find me no Lord. Don't feel strong where I've been. I'm blowing off in the wind. Paper the rights of my sins. I pray they stop.